Good morning, all of you that are online. Welcome. We're so glad that you're here. Goodness, when I first came in, I thought, what a light little crowd we'll have. And today, you've all come. Looks like there may be some new folks, and we surely welcome you with open arms. I agree. I asked her if she'd do that. A lollipop. I think, no, I gave her an apple. See, she's eating it. So I want to just invite you to the second round of conscious living, the sacred pillars of conscious living. It's a teaching that has come through in sort of a channeled way. It came pouring through. I would like so much to pitch my papers and just let it flow, but I'm afraid I'll miss something. And so if you don't mind, this is from my heart, but it moves and it flows, and so I'm going to read it to you sort of like a book, and maybe one day it will become one. Who knows? So the first pillar was sacred and conscious creation. The second pillar is called sacred reflection, and so today we're going to dive into how this really applies to our lives. At first, I thought that I was preparing a series of talks for Sunday, but somewhere along the way, I realized that it was much more meaningful than that. We're not simply gathering here to lead you on spiritual ideas, but I feel like we're setting out on a pilgrimage of consciousness, a pilgrimage that invites us month by month to become a little more awakened, a little more present, a little more perhaps compassionate with ourselves and for others around us. Last month we stepped into our first of the 7 pillars, conscious creation, and together we simply asked the question, what am I giving to consciousness within me? What am I giving to that? This is one of the questions that can follow us home. It follows us in the car, behind us while we're watching the news. It appears while we're laying in bed at 3 o'clock in the morning, imagining having that conversation with someone who's peacefully sleeping and has no idea we're winning the argument 100%, that person. Those are my favorite. What am I giving my consciousness to? Am I giving it to fear or to possibility? To old stories or a desire to create? Many of you shared that question had stuck with you. What am I giving my consciousness to? And several of you asked, what's coming next? And so here it is. Today, we're stepping onto that pilgrimage again with sacred reflection. Every pilgrimage is time of walking, and then there's time of pausing and noticing where we've come and perhaps where we are in this moment, right? And so we listen to what the journey is revealing to us. A shared reflection is that pause, the stopping, to listen, to notice, and perhaps even to choose differently in that moment. We pause because we cannot walk consciously if we're not willing to notice where we are. Today, the question for you is, are you willing to see what is true? Not what you wish to be true. Not what you've convinced yourself is true. Not what others have told you is true. I'm willing to see what is actually present within me with honesty, with curiosity, and with love. Can we ask ourselves that question? Am I willing to see that? But before we explore reflection, I want to take a moment to let's talk about what is sacred for a moment. It could be this building. It could be the windows bring a sacred element, the candle that we light. It could be the prayers that we offer, the music that is played. All of those things can be sacred in and of themselves. But I'm talking about something sacred about the quality of the presence that we bring here. A meal could be sacred. A walk in the woods could be a sacred time for you. Holding hands with your loved one can be a sacred moment. Even washing the dishes can become sacred when we are completely present. Perhaps sacredness is less to do with where we are and more to do with how we are. Reflection becomes sacred when it stops trying to fix ourselves and become willing to just simply know ourselves without judgment, without expectations. Just to simply begin to know ourselves. That is an important distinction. Most of us have spent our lives trying to improve ourselves, right? I want to be better. I'm going to work harder. I'm going to get this right. I'm going to appear stronger, and I'm going to appear more spiritual too while I'm at it, right? We work hard at that. But sacred reflection does not begin by asking us to become better. It begins by asking us to become honest. Am I willing to see what is true? Not so I can criticize myself, not so I can shame myself, not so that I can create one more list of things that I need to work on, not that, but simply to see. Just to see. Because transformation begins with seeing. Healing begins with seeing. Freedom begins with seeing. And love, real love, asks us to see clearly. Now, many of us believe that we are reflecting when we're actually just thinking. And thinking and reflecting are not always the same thing. Have you ever had a conversation with someone and you walked away feeling a little bothered? You looked at them at the end of the conversation, you smiled, and maybe you said, "Oh, is that so?" And then you walked to your car, and all the way home you cogitated over what you should have said. What did I really, really need to say? And you get home and you're sitting down for dinner and your partner or your friend or anybody is talking away and you're having the conversation over and over that you should have said and refining it, right? You're refining it. Now you're brushing your teeth before you go to bed and oh, that's a really good idea. And then when you wake up in the morning, you're back in that same place of having run it through so many times that you are certain that you have created the best response of all human consciousness could possibly do. This is not reflection. This is what we call rehearsal, right? Sacred reflection asks something very different. Rather than asking, what should I have said? Wait. Sacred reflection asks, what was touched within me? That's simple. What awakened in me in that moment? What felt dismissive or unimportant or afraid? Did I feel the need to defend myself and swallow it? One question keeps us trapped in the history of who we are as we question ourselves. But what is the question that gently brings us home? Was I listening and seeing things for what it truly is? Sacred reflection brings our attention back to our own inner world. It doesn't ask to blame ourselves for every darn thing that has ever happened. It doesn't ask us to hold some angst for ourselves because we couldn't quite be the true self in that moment, right? The difference is between blame and simple responsibility. This is a deeply loving act, to simply become responsible. I've come to believe in life that it's always reflecting something back to me. Every relationship, every disappointment, every irritation, every joy, every unexpected tenderness. Life is continuing to invite us to know ourselves in those ways more deeply. Not because every difficult experience is some cosmic lesson I failed to learn. That's not it. But life is revealing us to ourselves. It's like a mirror. The mirror does not have an agenda. It's not flattering me. It's not condemning me. It's not exaggerating what I'm seeing, hopefully. And it simply reflects what is present. Oh. The mirror doesn't say, you should look different, Kate. You should look different. The mirror says, this is what is here. This is what is here. This is what I am feeling. This is what I am believing. This is what I am avoiding. This is what I'm longing for. This is where I am alive. This is where I am afraid. This is what is here. There's something profoundly healing about being able to tell the truth without immediately demanding that I need to change the truth. Think of it like a garden. I have this beautiful garden at my home, and at first we tilled the soil. And then we lovingly planted carefully the seeds, although there were a few spots where we kind of crowded the situation. We learned from that. But we watered it and would go out every day and look down and wait for the little things to spring. And then they did. And it was beautiful to water and to tend them. And then to go back and see what's growing. Reflection does not stand in the garden and criticize my tomatoes for not blooming with dahlia flowers. We planted is flourishing. One needs more sunlight. One needs more water. One hasn't emerged from the soil yet. This area becomes crowded. Oops, we need to thin that one a little bit. The weeds are taking nourishment from something that is growing. The garden doesn't feel accused. It simply reveals what is true. Friends, we are that garden. We are that garden. Perhaps we need a tender hand for ourselves a bit more consciously. Sacred reflection is a practice of kneeling in the soil of our own lives with curiosity rather than criticism. It allows us to notice what we have been cultivating in our lives. What beliefs have we been feeding? What relationships are flourishing? What dreams have we neglected? What old fears continue to take root in my garden? What beauty is growing that we have been too busy to notice? Sacred reflection does not only reveal what is difficult, but it also reveals to us what is beautiful about us. Sometimes we're so accustomed to searching for the problems that we fail to notice the grace. We notice one thing we did wrong and overlook the 10 moments where we showed up with absolute courage. We notice where we became impatient and forgot the place where we know how to be tender. We notice the unfinished work and miss how much we've already created. Sacred reflection notices the whole garden. The weeds, yes, but also the blooms, also the fruit and the vegetables, the new growth, the quiet evidence of grace. That is why sacred reflection must always be rooted in love. Many people avoid self-reflection because they assume it means examining everything that is wrong with them. But I say to you, no. Sacred reflection is not self-criticism. It is self-compassion illuminated by truth. Sacred reflection is self-compassion illuminated by truth. Can you say that with me? Sacred compassion is self-illumination of truth. Reflection without love becomes judgment. Reflection with love becomes wisdom. There is a form of introspection that can become harsh and relentless that we put upon ourselves. We can analyze ourselves endlessly. Why did I say that? Why do I always do that over and again? What is wrong with me? Why am I not further along? Why am I so hard on myself? And that is not self-reflection. That is self-surveillance. Sacred reflection has a different voice. It sounds more like this. Something in me must have been feeling fear. I wonder what it needed. I noticed that I withdrew. I wonder what I was protecting. I became angry, and I wonder perhaps what boundary might have just been crossed. I felt jealous, and I wonder what longing was asking to simply be acknowledged. I felt joy, and I wonder what this joy is teaching me about this matter. Do you hear the kindness in the questions? Kindness does not make us less truthful. Kindness makes truth safe enough to be seen. Pages and pages. One of the extraordinary gifts of being human is our capacity to observe ourselves. Neuroscience has a word for this, and we talked about this. I shared this way back. It's called metacognition. It means being aware of one's own thinking, to be able to observe yourself observing. Metacognition. Metacognition. We can notice a thought rather than automatically believing it when we are in metacognition. It's a powerful tool. What do you call it? A ninja? That. The Ninja Jedi superpower. I think I screwed that up. But anyway, that is metacognition. We can use this tool to observe ourselves, observing, to notice the thoughts that we are thinking. We can experience an emotion without becoming completely identified with it when we are in metacognition. We can witness an old story that's rising up, and instead of sharing it, we can say, is this true? Is it just simply familiar? And as the thoughts might arise, am I enough? Metacognition allows us to say, I am noticing the thought that I'm not enough. You see the difference between owning it and embodying it and contracting with it and simply placing it on a little sacred altar before you that says, I see you. I'm aware of the thoughts that I'm thinking. Instead of being consumed by a thought, we become one who is more observing of those thoughts. You may feel fear arise. Rather than saying, I'm afraid, therefore there must be danger, what if we said, fear is moving through me. What is it trying to communicate to me? It's always a messenger. We are no longer fused by that experience. We are present to the experience. The mystics have spoken about this for thousands of years. Spiritual traditions call it being the witness of oneself. Unity speaks of the Christed consciousness within, which is the divine presence that can behold a human's experience without condemnation. Neuroscience calls it metacognition, and spirituality calls it awakening. Both are pointing towards the same remarkable human gift, the ability to become the compassionate witness of our own lives. The ability to become the compassionate witness of our own lives. And compassion is essential because awareness without love just becomes another weapon. We can become very skilled at watching ourselves and still be unkind. That's why sacred reflection asks us not only to observe, but to observe it through love. That's the lens, right? There is within each of us a quiet, loving presence that can witness every thought, every emotion, every joy, and every sorrow without condemnation. It is a divine consciousness that knows the truth of who we are, even when we may have temporarily forgotten. It sees clearly, but doesn't shame. It reveals, but it doesn't accuse. That is the gaze sacred reflection asks us to bring to ourselves. I can see myself clearly without abandoning myself, perhaps. Can I tell the truth without becoming cruel? Can I acknowledge a pattern without taking that pattern on as my identity? Can I look upon myself with the same compassionate gaze that the divine source holds for me? This is sacred seeing. This is where reflection becomes your prayer. We stand before mirrors every day. We check our hair and our clothes and make sure that everything is in place. And sometimes we lean forward and wonder, where did that wrinkle come from? And then we decide that the lighting in our bathroom has never been good. And maybe we need to hire a contractor because, well, you know. And then, when was the last time that you looked in the mirror with such a delicate tenderness for who was reflecting back to you? Shall we do that? I invite you to make that a part of your maybe morning ritual, to just take a moment and gaze within the eyes of self. Good morning. You are so beautiful. You are so lovely. You are beautiful. You are medicine to me. How about singing yourself that little ditty? Sometimes we lean forward and wonder a lot, but then we decide that the last time I look in the mirror without tenderness is behind me. I want to simply be present, and I invite you into that presence as well. Sacred reflection is more than looking. It's allowing ourselves to be seen. There is vulnerability in that, because many of us have spent years trying not to be seen. We've learned how to smile when we're hurting. We've learned how to say, "Oh, I'm fine," when we're not. We've learned how to care for everybody else and abandon ourselves. We've learned how to be capable and pleasant, spiritual and strong. And beneath all that, there may be a part of us that is still waiting to be met. Sacred reflection says, I am here now and I am waiting for you to see. Not to fix, but simply willing to be in the center of what is true. The willingness creates safety within us, and when the inner world feels safe enough, truth begins to emerge. We ask, what have I been storing? What have I been avoiding? What am I afraid that I will find? And what if what I find doesn't need to be feared after all? What if simple needs just need to be witnessed? Then sacred reflection becomes a doorway. It helps us to discern what we will continue carrying and what we are ready to release. This is conscious living. The sacred pillar of conscious creation asked, what am I giving my consciousness to? And sacred reflection stands alongside and says, what is shaping my consciousness? It is ours to unfold. It is our work to do. That they are two different questions, and yet they influence one another. What determines what I believe is possible? That voice may become so familiar that I mistake it for my own. When someone else's ideas are more important than my own, and I let that come in so deeply that I mistake it for my own voice, but to just simply stop and to listen, to take a moment to see into self. Because you see, sacred reflection turns the light on. Sacred reflections allows us to honor what the pattern once did for us that we are asking to let go of. I can say, thank you for protecting me. Thank you for helping me to survive. But I am no longer living in that moment. I have a choice now. I have a voice now. I have support and wisdom now. And I am safe enough to choose differently. Sacred reflection deepens our capacity for relationship and brings us to emotional maturity. And when we come home to ourselves, we begin to remember that we were actually never alone. Divine presence has always been within us. Sacred reflection is the moment we become quiet enough to meet that presence ourselves. And everything begins with the willingness to see. Yes. And so it is. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Dave, can you just give me one moment? Or you guys can come on up. But while I was looking in that mirror this morning, I began singing another song, and I know that you will just take a moment, one moment to sing it, Dave. Sure. Thank you. We're about to rock the Casbah, but I want to just bring you into a sacred moment. You don't have to know the way knows the way. You don't have to know the way knows the way. You don't have to plan the way, trust the way, feel the way knows, the way knows, the way knows the way. You don't have to know the way knows the way. You don't have to know the way knows the way. You don't have to plan the way, trust the way, feel the way knows.